Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time we have the Infinix Note 30 Pro. Let's go through it in full. Let's get started. This device is one of the most serious competitors in the mid-range because it incorporates some very advanced features that you will not find in virtually any other device in this price range. Although like any device, it probably has some points in its favor and some points against. I will tell you that throughout the review. But for now, let me tell you about the price and availability here in Mexico, although obviously this may vary in other countries. Its launch price has been 6,499 pesos. On the screen you see the reference price in dollars, so you have an idea more or less, but remember that the prices here are not the same as there. Its official distributors in Mexico are Liverpool, Sears, Amazon, Sam's Club, and Suburbia. But curiously in Sears is with a very interesting discount at the date of the recording of this video, remaining at 4,999 pesos, that for that price without a doubt there will be no other option, this will be the best option. But after having said all this, it is time for you to join me to know point by point all its aspects. Just by looking at the front design of this device, we can anticipate that this is something very attractive as we find symmetrical bezels, talking about the top bezel and bottom bezel, which as you can see are considerably thin. Also the side bezels are symmetrical, although we do not have a completely symmetrical design with all four edges, but either way we have a design that takes advantage of the front very well. Unfortunately, it doesn't integrate Gorilla Glass or something that gives us some level of confidence, although Infinix assures us that their glass either way offers good resistance, but I'm not sure I'd drop it on the ground to test its resistance. On the right side, we have power button and volume buttons. On the top, we have a secondary speaker audio output that also outputs sound through the earpiece for calls. And we have the JBL seal. On the left side is placed the tray where we can have two nano SIM cards and a microSD card. Although remember that this may vary depending on the different regions, but in Mexico this edition is distributed. At the bottom we find headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port, and the main speaker. All these frames have a metallic aesthetic, although they are actually made of plastic, which is what we would expect from a device of this series. It really doesn't disappoint in that regard. And its thickness is 8.2 millimeters, weighing 203 grams. I think we also accept these specifications in this price range without a problem. The back cover is also made of plastic, but with a very nice finish both to the touch and sight. In my hands, I have the color edition called Variable Gold, but it is also in Magic Black color. In fact, in other countries there is also the Orange edition with a synthetic leather cover, but in Mexico that version is not distributed. As you can notice, this cover can emit different shades of color depending on the angle at which it is receiving illumination, so it is very attractive in that sense. Although personally, I don't like the camera module. I feel that it is a bit asymmetrical and it is one of the negative points that I could find, although you know that design and tastes are relative. In terms of resistance, it offers IP53 certification, so it can withstand splashes of water, for example, for use in the rain, but it cannot be submerged. The screen is 6.67 inches and offers AMOLED technology, something uncommon to see in the range. Therefore, we could easily categorize it as one of its strengths. Since in addition to offering this technology that gives us very intense colors and contrasts, it is also going to give us a very good Full HD Plus resolution, maintaining a good pixel density, which means that the contents will look sharp even when they are small texts. So, it's a screen that really pleases me in practically every aspect. The brightness is going to be considerably high, though not at the level of high-end devices, but it definitely does allow you to relatively comfortably use the device outdoors. In fact, it has a feature called high brightness mode that will increase the brightness even more for those uses in bright sunlight. And another attraction of this screen is its refresh rate that reaches 120 Hz to show you very smooth and fluid movements, although it could have an impact on battery life. So if you don't want your battery to drain that fast, you could adjust the refresh rate to 60 Hz, or you could find a balance by selecting 90 Hz, which I would think would be more appropriate. This is a very good thing because there are other manufacturers that don't allow you an in-between setting, but Infinix does. It also has two color calibration modes available, or you can do it manually. As a display conclusion, it is definitely an element that meets very well and even exceeds what one would expect in a device of this price. Now you are about to listen to an audio recording made with this device. This is a test of the audio quality captured with the Infinix Note 30 Pro, a device that competes in the mid-range. There is no doubt that this section will be its weakest point since it only has a microphone at the bottom. Therefore, it does not pick up stereo sound, and if you get to cover it with your finger, it will stop picking up absolutely all the sound, an experience that we only find in low-end devices. But on the other hand, if we talk about the speakers, we will find again a strong point since it does offer stereo sound and also certified by JBL. It is a sound with a lot of power and also with good quality in its definition, although it does not have so much bass presence but what one would expect in a device of this price range. Let's listen to a small test, although remember that it is not the same as listening to it live. There is no doubt that the speakers are one of its strongest points, but it also comes complemented with a DTS sound experience with various surround sound presets, Dolby Atmos style, but what I like most is that it does integrate an equalizer without the need to have headphones connected. Although it's only a 5-band equalizer, so it doesn't offer that much versatility, but the vast majority of devices in this price range don't offer an equalizer, and if they do, it's exclusively enabled when you use headphones. But here we have a completely free experience, and speaking of headphones, you can connect headphones via cable, and if you decide to use wireless headphones, it doesn't have advanced high-resolution codecs, but that's what you'd expect in this price range. The front camera is 32 megapixels, having a very high resolution sensor. Its aperture is f2.45 and it has fixed focus. And that high resolution sensor will merge the pixels only when you use the night mode. The capture experience is going to be positive. It doesn't feel like it reacts too slow. If we hold down the shutter, we don't have burst, and in the settings, we won't find easy capture through the palm shutter either. But we can use the fingerprint reader as a shutter, or we can also choose to tap on any area of the picture. So you could shoot the pictures a little easier, but I don't think it's that comfortable. In the upper right corner, it also gives us access to a good variety of filters that we can't preview in real time at the same time, but we can apply them. The selfies I liked a lot in terms of quality, level of detail, color. The truth is that I was very surprised by the result because we are not talking about a very expensive device, but it really comes out a photo of very good quality, and despite having fixed focus, you can actually be a little close or stretch your arm and you will still get a good framing in your picture. In fact, it also includes a panorama mode with the front camera in case you want a group selfie. Indoors, also the picture comes out with a good quality. Surprisingly, it maintains a good level of detail, although obviously it will be less than the level of detail it showed outdoors. But I like that it also maintains good color saturation. At night, from the automatic mode when we have direct light, we have an excellent result for this price level. It still maintains a good level of detail, there is not too much noise in the darker areas, so overall I liked it a lot. In indirect light conditions, it loses a little more quality, especially with respect to capturing details and the most illuminated areas. However, if you enable the night mode, notice how it very significantly improves the contrast of the photo to have a better quality. So, it is definitely advisable to use the night mode in these conditions. In night, backlight also comes to surprise as it is able to turn on the screen in white to illuminate your face and try to have a better result. If you use the night mode, the result will be even more spectacular, and it also has a small front flash that you can use in this type of scenarios. So definitely the front camera surprised me for good, giving excellent results. It can also take portrait pictures, although it is not able to detect objects, so we could say that it is a simple portrait. Besides that, backlit is not going to behave very well in this type of scenarios. But look at the quality we would have in a night portrait, which definitely gives a very nice touch. And I had forgotten to show you that in backlit photos, the preview does not look optimized. But after taking the picture, it does manage to process lights and shadows well, although not excellently, because there are some areas that look slightly overexposed, but for the price range we could not get so demanding. Honestly, it performs well. On the back we find the main camera of 108 megapixels with f1.8 aperture. It is another of the strongest points because it is something uncommon to see in devices of this range. We also have two other cameras that I consider useless cameras, or also marketing cameras, because they are just there to shield. They are two 2-megapixel cameras with f2.4 aperture, extremely simple for macro and depth. The capture speed of this camera is considerably good. I tried to capture number 3 and even got a little ahead of myself. And if you hold down the shutter, we can have a burst, although as you noticed, it's up to 20 pictures and it takes a while to start. So through the burst, it's not so advisable to capture the exact moment, but fortunately the shutter in simple photography seems to react quickly. If you tap on screen, you can adjust the focus and also the exposure. And if you swipe up, you will discover that there is also the Pro mode. Within this mode, we are going to have more settings available, such as exposure compensation, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, focus and metering type. However, the device does not allow us to capture raw photos. Within the automatic mode, we also have available the same filters that we saw in the front camera, and to scan documents, it is not possible from the automatic mode, but it does have a special mode called Documents, through which we can make the automatic cutting of these sheets. By default, it is saved as an image, but if you choose the option to share and then print, you can also choose the option to save it as PDF. Unfortunately, it does not do QR code scanning from the main camera interface, but it does include a direct access button to Google Lens, and through this application, we can do this action without any complications. Right now we're looking at a 108 megapixel photograph, and it actually seems to make good use of the resolution of this sensor to do some cropping in the photograph. But I feel that because the processor is not as advanced, it doesn't really capture as much detail as we'd like. There are some areas that appear a little blurry, possibly because of the exposure time it takes the processor to be capturing all that detail. So in reality, we don't really get that detailed pictures despite having the 108 megapixel resolution. The photos with movement are captured in a good way. There are just some areas here that appear a little blurry, but it is natural in photography, especially talking about a device that is not high-end. With the automatic mode to the photographs, it seems to me that they have a little warmer tonality than I would like. It also has a more intense contrast, and even in the photographs with the main lens, it manages to notice areas of chromatic aberration. Then the camera, I think it is not of its highlights. Indoors, I think it performs better because there is not so much lighting to work with, so here we have a good level of detail, good colors, and good contrast as well. In backlight, the preview doesn't look optimized, but after taking the picture, I find it to be one of the best results we've seen on this cell phone with the main camera. We have a shadow area that has sufficient illumination and the highlight area that is not overexposed. At night, in an area where there is direct lighting, we have a good result, just that the darker areas do not come out with as much detail, but that is normal in a device of this range. However, if you use the night mode, it will slightly improve the capture of the details of these darker areas without being something spectacular, but in the price range, I really like this result, especially for the good color saturation. In indirect light conditions or a little lower, we have a simple result, especially talking about the automatic mode, where we have little contrast and a scene a little warmer than it was in reality, although we were in a scene of yellow light. However, with the night mode, it seems to me that it improves the result too much, increasing the contrast and with it also the level of detail. So even if you don't have such spectacular photos with the automatic mode, if you use the night mode, you will have very good photos. Now let's talk about the zoom, since this is the starting distance of the picture. Then we're going to find a 2x zoom, digital obviously, but it's still a good level of detail, acceptable. Then we have 5x, and finally the maximum we get is 10x, and it doesn't seem to me that it takes advantage of 100% of the resolution of the sensor. So the zoom is not spectacular, but it seems to me that it's a very similar zoom to what we see in this price range. It should be noted that this device does not incorporate an ultra-wide camera, so if you need a photo with more space, you should ideally use the panoramic mode. And the result is positive, although the color rendition changes a lot in panorama mode compared to automatic mode. This is the result we have with the macro camera, which, although it lets us be very close to the object having a correct focus, in reality the colors come out badly, and since the focus is fixed, you need to be at an optimal distance. If you get closer or farther away, it will come out of focus. That's why I prefer to take pictures with the main camera, and notice how we have autofocus, so you can focus on these small objects while maintaining an intense color and above all a level of detail that I find superior to what the macro camera offers us. Definitely the macro camera seems useless to me in this device. On the other hand, the depth camera seems to be well used, although I'm pretty sure this could also be achieved exclusively with the 108 megapixel sensor. But portraits certainly come out with good quality, keeping objects and people at the same distance in focus, blurring the background nicely and intensely, and even maintaining good color and good dynamic range in this type of photography. Portraits definitely come out very well for the price range we're talking about. In video recording, we also find a positive experience as it is able to reach up to 2K in its resolution at 30 frames per second. If you want to record at 60 frames per second, it should be done in full HD. But what I like is that even the front camera can also record in 2K and also in full HD at 60 frames per second. And those are features that many other manufacturers do not offer you. So, this again stands out a lot and could be among its strongest points. In fact, you'll also notice that it has a beauty mode for video recording, although if you use the beauty mode, the resolution drops to 720p. If you tap on the screen, you can regulate the focus and exposure, but it doesn't have a more advanced mode of manual controls for video. What it does integrate is a movie mode that brings some presets, so you can create the videos with some production through these templates without the need for editing knowledge. The video quality is very good in terms of resolution, although the truth is that you immediately notice that it does not have very good stabilization. Colors come out well, although the white balance can seem a bit unstable at times depending on the color that predominates in the scene you are recording. Indoors, it retains good color saturation, although movements feel a bit slower due to the absence of more lighting, but I like that we still have a good level of detail and contrast. In backlit scenes, he's going to overexpose the brightest areas of the background, giving priority to lighting the face well. Although he does not make such aggressive jumps in lighting compared to other devices in the range, then it seems to me that it is still a positive result. However, it is still noticeable that it lacks stabilization. At night, despite having a slightly dark result, it is appreciated that we do not have excessive noise and still maintains true colors. I remind you that the scene where I recorded this did have warm light, and I think it represents it very well, with good color accuracy. Although when you shoot the white wall, it seems that the white balance is readjusted and changed, so you notice that drastic change a lot. As I anticipated, we don't have stabilization, at least by default. Since recording in 2K, you will see that it is very noticeable when you are walking, and even more so when you are running. Fortunately, it does include a higher stabilization mode, although the resolution drops to full HD, but I think it's still a good resolution for recording. So when you're walking, the movements are well disguised, although perhaps not enough for the moments where you're running. But in a device of this price, we could not be so demanding. Regarding the zoom, if you are recording in 2K, we do not have stabilization, and that produces an inferior result. In addition, the level of detail is not so high, but it is what we could ask from a device of this price. The most advisable will be to record in full HD if you want to apply zoom to have a better stabilization, and thus the result looks much nicer. Although the level of detail is still very similar, the focus is quite slow, so you don't notice that it reacts very fast, especially when moving from the foreground to the background. When moving from the second to the foreground, it will refocus a bit faster, but it doesn't seem to be one of its strongest points anyway. In subtle movements, we will also notice that the focus takes a little while to readjust, so it is not so recommended in this type of scenarios. Surprisingly, it includes a portrait recording mode, although it is in HD, and you will notice that the detection is quite artificial because it will be very noticeable if you are moving. The ideal in this case will be to stand still for a more pleasant result. If you move away, the blur is completely disabled, and I insist that it is not advisable to be moving and it will not keep the objects in focus. It's a fairly simple result, but it is striking that a device of this price integrates a mode like this. It also has slow motion, which can be of 120 or 240 frames per second, although only in HD. But again, it is surprising that a device of this price has this feature. Also, the fast camera can be in 2K resolution, although it has no stabilization. It goes from 15x, which can be very fast for people, but it can go up to 5400x, with which you can easily record the development of a plant. The front camera also has the ability to record video in 2K, and that is very surprising because we have a level of detail completely superior to what we find in other devices. Although when recording in 2K, we are not going to have stabilization, but you could enable it if you are not moving and want a higher level of detail. In backlight, we do not have an excellent behavior, so the most convenient will be to record with the light from the front and not from behind. If you record in full HD, you will have stabilization, so you can walk around without the shot looking too shaky. Although indoors it starts to appear much more noise because we do not have as much lighting and the colors are not as saturated as if they were seen in the photograph. It is very curious that it also includes a portrait mode for the front camera, although the behavior is very similar to what we saw in the rear camera, that is, it is very simple and in HD resolution. It also integrates HD slow motion here in the front camera and even fast camera with the same configuration as in the rear camera. We will also find dual recording mode to integrate the front camera and the rear camera at the same time. It does have autofocus enabled, and we are also going to be able to zoom in this type of recordings. So it is surprising how versatile this camera is with all the modes it has available. You can even change the space allocated to each of the cameras, so it doesn't necessarily have to be split exactly down the middle. You can also swap the position of these cameras, and we also have a picture-in-picture mode. Although you must have the recording to switch to this mode, this rectangle can be moved around the screen. Although it has a stop on the right, you can't resize it, but the camera still retains autofocus and zoom, although it must be done with 2 fingers. Finally, you can swap the position of these cameras without cutting the video, which also gives you good versatility. This device integrates Android 13 and on it the Infinix customization layer called XOS, also in its 13th version. The manufacturer does not offer a clear update policy, but in this price range it is not something we could get very picky about. Generally, most devices in this price range will only receive security patches and at best an Android update. However, it is an operating system with attractive features. For starters, we will find a smart suggestion widget that will learn from your routine, and in this part it can show you app icons that you might need at certain times of the day. They will change depending on your routine, and you also have a section here where you can add tasks or events, all through this smart widget. They also have a sidebar that they call Smart Panel, through which you can have quick shortcuts to apps or system tools like screenshot or screen recording. If you click on these apps, you will notice that they will open in a floating window mode. These windows can be resized and moved across the entire screen, and something I like is that you can open more than one app in this mode, unlike other devices that only allow you to open one at a time. So you have a very attractive feature that is generally not common to see on devices of this price. You can open 2 apps at the same time in this format, and if you are inside an app and you want to change it to floating format, just make this gesture to the side and it will automatically transform. And it also includes a feature called Social Turbo, which are several options to improve your WhatsApp experience specifically. For example, we have a voice modulator that will allow us to change the style of our voice in a video call. So, when we are in a video call, automatically this setting appears so that we can select some other character. Listen to what my voice will sound like now. Estoy probando.
Estoy probando.
Esta es otra voz.
Esta es otra voz.
Otra voz más.
Otra voz más.
Y esta es la última.
Y esta es la última.
Within these special tools, we will also find a beauty mode to blur your face, and finally an option to turn on the front flash that comes included. They also add the option to record the calls you make through WhatsApp, and also allows you to view your messages without being marked as read within WhatsApp. So from here, we could take a look at all the conversations, although the stickers are not fully displayed here, but at least it allows you to read the content without other people knowing. It also includes a sticker creator where you can add your own pictures to be sent as this item. You can tell it to use the flash to notify you when you receive a new WhatsApp message, and it will also allow you to save the statuses of your contacts, whether image or video, simply by entering this section and see how here it is already available for me to save, and now I have it as a file on my device. All this suite of options is already integrated into the system without you having to download other applications, so it is also a very strong point. It also includes always on display with different covers that you can customize. Some of them even let you choose your own video so that it can appear while your screen is locked. So again, it offers more options than what manufacturers generally offer in this price range, giving very good customization. It certainly looks like a considerably mature operating system with a lot of options. Hopefully it will also be very stable, but only time will tell. This device comes well equipped in security with a side fingerprint reader. Although a bit thin, so it could cause some incorrect readings, it's a matter of getting used to it. It allows you to make 5 different finger registrations. You can even use this reader to answer calls, record calls, or dismiss alarms. You can also choose whether to press the button or just touch it when unlocking the device. So, this reader has good features and also has facial recognition, although this recognition is much simpler, only in 2 dimensions, so it does not offer a high level of security. To keep the device unlocked in secure environments, we can log in to Google Smart Lock and register our trusted places or devices. But this device also offers additional features such as App Lock, where you can select which apps must double-check your fingerprint before you can log in. We also have the function called X-Hide, which is a kind of secure folder where we can safeguard images, videos, recordings, documents, or even applications so that we can only use them with our fingerprint. We can also clone applications to have 2 accounts of the same on this device, and has a function called Secure Keyboard to enter some passwords. It even has anti-spy filter that will darken other parts of the screen so that people do not see what you are doing, as a kind of security filter. It also has a theft alert that will notify you and sound when the device is disconnected and you have left it charging. Interestingly, it also offers a child mode, where you can select how long you want the child to use the cell phone and which applications you give permission to enter. Also, as you see, a light filter is enabled. There are also bad posture alerts, so it can be very useful to lend this cell phone to a little one. To exit this mode, it is obvious that they must verify before, supposedly both by fingerprint and pattern, but curiously here only works with the pattern. Another security feature is within the Phone Master application, where we will find an antivirus. This is for those who are more concerned about malware. All the software on the device can be a bit repetitive, with duplication of functions within other sections, so if it feels a bit cluttered, hopefully they can simplify it. If you do happen to lose your device, you're going to be completely reliant on Google and what their own Find My Device app may be, as Infinix currently has no implementation of its own. And by the way, I forgot to mention that Infinix has its own voice assistant called Folax, which at the moment is not available in Spanish, but it is already confirmed that it will be soon. The battery is 5000 milliamps, and in the test it yielded about the same as other devices with similar capabilities. That is, it is not spectacular, but you can supplement it with a traditional power saving mode or a much more aggressive power saving mode, so that in case of an emergency, you still have a good time to use your device. As you notice, it lowers the screen brightness, sets the dark mode, and enables access to only a few apps that you have authorized. So, the battery life seems to me to simply be average, but here, the highlight is the charging power, as the charger included in the box is 68 watts. In 15 minutes it recovers 54% of the power, in 30 minutes 85%, and charging to 100% finishes in only 43 minutes. That's the fastest charge you're going to find in this segment. But if that's not enough, it also has 15 watts of wireless charging. Another thing you're not going to find on any other device in this range, but if that's not enough, it also supports reverse wireless charging. So on its back, you can place your wireless headphones to charge automatically without any wires. So it offers very advanced features that we only find in high-end devices, and that's why these features should be highlighted as its strongest points. However, it could still get better since wireless charging is integrated, but it does not have charging lock. So, if you are one of those who leave your cell phone charging all night, it will not be damaged if you enable this option. But if you are one of those people who need to have this device plugged into the power all the time, you can damage it. It has a charging bypass function that will serve more or less as a charging lock, but it only works within games to give power directly to the processor without going through the battery to avoid heating. So it can be very useful, this function, but I would like to have the load lock available also in the whole system. In connectivity, it's just average for what one would expect from a smartphone of this price. It has Wi-Fi 5, it will also have support for 4G networks, so we don't have very advanced connectivity. And in the Phone Master app, we find a data manager that allows us to set a limit on our data plan and other settings, but it doesn't allow us to specifically determine which apps do and which apps can't use our mobile data plan. So there is still a little improvement here. It also has Bluetooth 5.0, which is what we expected in a device in this range, but the surprise is that it also has NFC, although in this sense there are some other proposals from other manufacturers that also include this chip, but it is still a surprise to find it in this price range. This would allow you to make mobile payments through Google Wallet if you set up your bank account. Finally, it also has the option to wirelessly project your screen and can project not only to Chromecast but also to other TVs. And we found absolutely all sensors working properly, including a physical proximity sensor and also including gyroscope. Infinix's ecosystem is in development, so you will not find an excellent interaction between their devices. In addition, in Mexico, they only sell their cell phones, although in other countries they do sell headphones, computers, and some other accessories, but it definitely does not yet feel a mature experience in this sense, and therefore this could be one of its weaknesses, although it is rescued by the fact that it has Android, which has an open ecosystem. Therefore, it can also easily connect to cell phones of other brands through Nearby Share or also to Windows computers if you install this feature to send and receive files. It also has Google FastPay to connect to headphones of other brands that integrate this technology in a simple way. But in this sense, it feels that it still relies heavily on Google, also incorporating the Google Cloud and also incorporating Google Home for control of home devices. Which is not bad that it depends on Google in several things, but it still does not feel like a very strong brand with its own ecosystem. This device incorporates the Helio G99 processor, which is built on a 6nm process and is accompanied by 8GB of physical RAM, and you can put up to another 8GB of virtual RAM. In this case, by default, it comes with an additional 5 virtual gigabytes, which we will test in a moment whether or not they are actually being taken advantage of. It took 3.5 seconds on average to open each of these 16 applications. It was a fairly extensive test, but with this, we were able to confirm that some system animations need improvement because they could slow down the user experience at times. However, at the moment, we are checking if the apps are still running in the background after returning to them, seeing that it integrates 13GB of total RAM at the moment, joining the physical RAM with the virtual RAM through the storage. According to what he reached to see, the device itself is behaving well, keeping all these applications open, but I insist that the system animations could hinder the user experience on many occasions as they do not give us an experience as smooth as we reach to see in other brands. But if they improve the animations, I think the rest of the things are very good since it does offer us a considerably advanced performance once you have all the applications open, and we even saw that it did not take so long to open the applications. I think that for this price, it will give us a high performance with the small detail that the software should improve the animations. Notice how scrolling within applications can load the content in a good way. Of course, it will not be free of some moments where it gets slightly stuck, but in general we could say that it does maintain a smooth experience. Now we will do our test of exporting videos recorded with this device. They were recorded in 2K, but we will export in Full HD so we can know more or less what is the equivalent power with the tests we do with devices of the same range. This proves that the device works very well for video editing in Full HD. But another of its other very strong sections is the storage, because we have 256GB, something that is very uncommon to see in devices of this same price. Therefore, it will be a very good choice for those who are looking for a cell phone that lasts a long time, because you will be able to save many images, many videos, even have installed many games without the device becomes full. Let's move on to talk about games by first mentioning that there is a game mode on this device, a suite of tools that you can take advantage of when playing games. For starters, you can select to have notifications appear as a text strip that scrolls across the screen to avoid distractions, or you can also choose to hide those notifications completely. You can also see how long you've been playing and set reminders to avoid any addiction. It also includes some color enhancements for some games, but in this case none of the ones I have installed are supported. There is also the charge bypass function that I had mentioned a moment ago in the battery section, and has the option to prevent the automatic brightness is enabled while you're playing, so they are also good options. When you are in a game, you can do this gesture to be able to open this list of special tools where you can see a monitoring of CPU and GPU consumption. You can also open applications in this floating mode so you can make a query or answer a message without the need to close your game. In this toolbar, we will also find the possibility of taking screenshots, screen recording, cleaning RAM memory, blocking notifications, blocking calls. Although it does not allow us to add an exception so that there are people who can interrupt us. We can also modulate the voice to change how it sounds. This is useful for games that have voice chat available. There is also a temperature control option, which will allow the device to lower its performance if it is getting too hot. And there is also the option to turn off the screen for a moment while the game is downloading content to prevent it from suspending. And finally, there is the magic button option, which allows us to map the volume buttons to function as virtual buttons. This is a feature that we usually find in devices for gamers. So, you can select which buttons you want to map and where you want to position them so that when you press those buttons, they react like virtual buttons. Notice I press the volume up button and it's like I press this button and the volume down is this other button. A feature that can be very useful for many gamers. In Call of Duty, this device by default loads medium quality at a medium frame rate. What you can do is just go up to a high frame rate for more fluidity, but that confirms to us that not having a Snapdragon processor does not give it access to very high graphic qualities or advanced effects. However, if you are not very interested in advanced effects and very detailed graphics, it will give you a very good experience. In this case, the fluidity was very good. It didn't get too hot either. So, for the price, I think it gives you a very good gaming experience without a doubt, including also the software features that I mentioned a moment ago. During gameplay, we didn't manage to notice considerable frame drops even when recording the screen. The only thing we noticed was that at the moment of starting the game, it got to lock up for a very small moment, probably when loading new textures, but after that, the game was extremely fluid. Within the Legends game, the setting is on automatic, but for this test, we selected it in a medium quality at 60 frames per second to put a test more or less adequate to its price. With these settings, we were surprised that it did go up to almost 60 frames per second on average, showing a good level of stability. The device will definitely give us an excellent performance for those who like to play games. Obviously, as I said a moment ago, it may not offer such detailed graphics, but if that is not your priority but only stability, you will definitely have a considerably good experience. In SpongeBob SquarePants, by default, it's in low quality, but we upgraded it to medium resolution at 60 frames per second to test. This game took a little more work. It seems that the processor is not as optimized for these contents, but still the experience was good. Possibly also selecting some things in a lower quality can improve its performance, but I insist that even being in this graphic quality, the game performed well, just with some moments where it came to cost more work. But it seems to me a good alternative for those looking to play, although it is likely that in this price range there are some other device that is totally focused on gaming, where you could find perhaps a slightly more powerful processor. But honestly, I really like this experience, especially because it comes well complemented with software options focused on games. Finally, in Henshin Impact by default, this device gives us the graphics quality very low, but for the test we turned it up to low, to be a little kind to the price of the device, and turned it up to 60 frames per second. With this, the experience was in keeping with the price. Obviously, it didn't get to 60 frames per second, but it seems to me that it's still a performance that one would expect in a device of this price point. Obviously, we do not have detailed graphics, but at least it has enough stability to play, at least at the beginning, although if you play prolonged games, you may face more complications due to overheating, although it does not get too hot. But it seems that in order to not get too hot, it might have a lot more hiccups than we would like. But if you play it at the default quality, you're probably going to have a better experience. In this case, it's not that there weren't that many hitches, but it did come to vary at times where it lowered its frame rate per second and times where it went much higher. Therefore, it is not a very stable experience, but even so, the gameplay seems positive to me. This brings us to the end of the video review. I hope you liked all this content. If you did, you know you can tell us about it, and we'll see you in the next video.